You mentioned Montreal. So you were born in Montreal, Mr. Tucker.
That's right, yeah.
And you visited Rockland like how often?
Every March break every year.
March break. Okay.
And I ended up going back to Montreal with a French accent. Because my aunt had a French employee.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so it was not from your family, it was from the Blais family.
The kids of the employees.
So you went back to Montreal with a French accent from Ontario.
Yep.
Yeah, go figure.
Where did you stay when you were here?
My aunt's place.
So the big white house.
Yeah.
That was Margaret?
Margaret and Gladys, yeah.
Okay, so that was your aunt. So at the time, who lived next door? Like originally it was Willard Sr., so which was your grandpa.
Oh, was he in Montreal?
No, next door in Rockland.
In Rockland, yeah. So when you...
There was no Tuckers around.
No.
Oh,
And so
really?
when did your grandfather die?
My grandfather was in Montreal. I remember him. My grandmother owned the house, and I think he wasn't there at first, but he came later. And I remember my grandmother gave him trouble. He'd go out with a list of 4 things for groceries, and he'd come back with 3, and she'd send him back out again.
Okay, so your grandfather then lived in Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay, but his 2 daughters lived
in their house in Clarence.
Oh, so it's been so that beautiful building, the general store and bank. Then the Tucker family did not live in it for very long. Then
The Desjardins place was owned by my 2 aunts.
The white one, but the one next to it.
Well, across the street from the Tucker house.
Right, right. But
Yeah.
there was the dairy farm, which was Margaret's.
Yeah.
But the bank and general store was not in the family anymore then when you were visiting.
Yeah, well, if your grandfather was in Montreal.
I think the thing was there. It was used to store grain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It wasn't used as a store. It was used to store grain.
Oh, that's interesting because I have to say now it's one of the most beautiful homes. It's been so well renovated. They kept the character, and the tin roof is still there, painted. Oh, wow. That is really neat.
It was just a bunch of bins. Like my aunts were farmers, and they used the house to store the grain.
Wow, Jackie, you know which house? The right next to the White House with the beautiful yellow roof, metal roof. Notice next time. It's just beautiful.
I can't picture it in my mind right now, but
yeah, they did a great renovation. So March break, I'm fascinated by that. So what did you do that week, Mr. Tucker? What did you do in Clarence Point?
I'd be having. I was having fun with the Desjardins, the family that was working for my aunt.
Right.
And
they had kids.
They had kids, and
Okay.
playing with them.
Still fishing?
I only went fishing one time.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised with that luck. I'm surprised you didn't go all the time.
So many fish.
Yeah.
So you're saying though earlier that in those times, Tucker House, the one that we're talking about right now, was not lived in. You said you never went in.
I don't think that anybody was living there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So that means that beautiful house was empty. The one next to the farm was empty. Wow.
When was it donated to the Baptist church? Do we know that?
That was in the 70s.
It was sold to the Baptist church for a nominal amount.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. In the 70s. And I think they held retreats. from what I gather. And I think they made improvements. I think they're the group who built the pool and maybe renovated the kitchen. Made it.
There may have been a pool, and I just didn't remember it.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, the pool is 70s, I would say, because it's yeah.
So it's interesting. So because if they sold it in the 70s, I was born in 71, and I do remember visiting. Like I said, I was younger than 10 for sure. I would say probably 6 or 7.
And was it open then, Sue? Was there somebody in there? Or?
Well, I think that might have been the time that Dad knocked on the door and said, you know, I'm Stephen Tucker, and they just about fell over. Do you remember that? Yeah. A young girl opened the door and you said, I'm Stephen Tucker. And what do you mean?
That is funny because just before I became executive director, there was an open house on a July day. And I came and people were all excited, and I was sort of asking what's going on. I said, apparently there's a Tucker family member visiting today. So this was 3 years ago, and they looked and they looked and they never came up. But apparently that was the big rumor. There was a Tucker family member in Rockland visiting Tucker House for the open house. But it wasn't here if it was 3 years ago. Do you remember the outbuildings a bit, Mr. Tucker, the ones that were on Tucker House's property? Like the barn that Jackie showed, the barn, but do you remember other old outer buildings?
Really, I know there was one down the hill. There's where the employees were, and I don't think anybody was in the Tucker House, but I don't remember any other building.
Okay, it's just we found rooms like foundations a couple years ago, and we think it was an old barn, but we don't know when or what. But we'll get to the bottom of it at some point.
Yeah.
We have a little museum in Rockland, and Mr. Chartrand, who runs it, just collects everything. And you go, like the first time I went there and I mentioned where I lived, and he said, oh, and he went to these booklets and he came up with a picture of my house with 3 stories. And I said, well, my house has 1 story. And he knew everything, everything about it. So I will ask him, he will have to come.
You want to know anything, go to see him.
Yeah, well, I'd rather go see you now.
Yeah.
Now we got you. But I have one big question, and it has to do with animals.
Yeah.
I need to know about Miss Tucker's cows. Apparently, they were very special. Do you remember them?
They had almost as big a genealogy as I have. She would buy a cow, but the mother had to be giving quite a lot of milk, and the grandmother had to give quite a lot of milk, and the great grandmother had to give quite a lot of milk. They have a big history. She had the cows that she had gave a lot of milk, and because she bought good cows.
Well, it's very interesting to hear because in everything that I've found or we found as a team in the paperwork, we don't find anything about the cows. And yet somebody, Eliane, who works with us right now, she was in the village not too long ago and talked to someone who said, well, Mrs. Tucker had the best cows.
Yeah, right.
And it was the first time any of us heard about the cows. We knew there was a dairy farm at some point, but now there's an explanation. These cows were chosen very meticulously.
She'd only buy a cow if the mother was giving a lot of milk too.
Yeah. Do you remember them by chance? Like, do you remember seeing them?
I used to see the cows, yeah.
It's just, it's hard for us to picture cows because then now it's homes, right?
You know, it's funny, like, unless you're a farmer, you don't know that cows never have, they don't need any furnace or anything in the barn. And the cows provided the heat.
Anyway, the reason I'm asking about cows, because every once in a while I'm thinking, should we find a way in the house or outside to have a little bit of a tribute to Miss Tucker's cows? So it's interesting to hear about that.
Do you remember where they were? Where they kept them?
Yeah, and there's a barn behind the house.
Behind the.
In farther from the road, from behind the house.
In the Tucker.
And no, on the Clarence, in Margaret, on my aunt's house.
Okay.
The dairy farm, yeah, and you know that the Desjardins, what's his name? It's Richard Desjardins, who's there now. He has a business there, and I think he's using all of these old buildings. They're still in use. He has a cement business.
Oh yeah.
So we see trucks in and out, in and out.
Now my aunt used to make maple syrup. She had 2 big pans, about 20 feet square, 2 pans, and she put the sap into one pan, and then after it was there for a while, and it goes to the second pan, and she had the best syrup in Clarence.
And this was all the trees on their farm, like near the White
House. No, on the behind the across the street from the.
Oh, across the street. Okay.
And the Jardin place.
Oh wow. Interesting. See, that's another. We've never explored that maple syrup. I've never heard about maple syrup being made there. That's neat. We did. Go ahead.
She used to wander around to collect the sap with on the horses. The horses on the fields used to break their legs, and it was like she was a break when she was able to get a tractor and use a tractor to go around the field.
My goodness.
There was these, what's the animal that made a tunnel, and they used to make tunnels in the
groundhogs?
Groundhogs.
Or gophers or something, and so they were making holes, and then the horses would fall in?
Yeah, they have a hole, and there'd be a tunnel, and another hole farther along, and the horses would put get their feet caught in the holes, and she was glad when she could use a tractor.
So we're talking about what year then, when you were talking the maple syrup?
Well,
probably in the 40s, right? You were born in 31.
I was probably between 31 and.
Yeah, so he was born in 31, and so and
I went to March break up there.
Yeah, and so probably 36, 37 to 45ish.
And my aunt had a cat that was older than me, and I was mad.
I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
Cats aren't allowed to be older than humans.
How old was the cat? Do you remember?
I think it died around 15.
Oh my goodness!
But I was probably 7 or 8 or something like that, and it was 10 or 12.
So it seemed very old cat for you then.
They're not allowed to be that old.
So in essence, now I'm getting a better picture. So you came for your March break from Montreal, and the White House, your Aunt Margaret's, was it for the Tucker family. There was no other Tucker around them.
Nothing I know of.
Oh, so
what about the Wilsons?
The Wilsons were near there's a church. I don't know if the church is still there. No, I think it's closed because I don't think there's any people left to go to the church.
The Baptist church?
Yeah.
No, it's still there.
Yeah.
And it's still used as well.
Like the Wilsons were right beside that church.
Yes, I was hoping that Kathy Scott would join us tonight. She's the one who wrote, I think I sent you, Sue, the binder on the Wilson farm history. So she wanted to be, and I'm surprised she didn't show up, but she lives right next door to it.
My grandfather married a Wilson, and his sister married a Tucker.
Yes, that's right. And I think that's how this Kathy managed to get her hands on the trunk that belonged to one of the young Tucker ladies who had gone on a trip. And this was a traveling trunk. And there's still the label on it saying it's going back to Tucker Road in Rockland. And yeah, Kathy, I'm sad that she could not make it tonight, but she has a lot of that knowledge. She lives, in fact, on what used to be the Wilson farm, right? And it's still, we can still see it at this time of year, especially, there's an abandoned barn there, like it's still standing, some parts of it. Kind of like us, really, in the background and everything. Do you remember, well, I shouldn't say remember because it probably didn't exist. Did you ever hear of a quarry on the property of the Tucker house across the street from your aunt's?
A quarry, like a rock quarry?
Yeah. Limestone.
Limestone.
No, not really, no. Okay. I know that there was I remember seeing the house towards away from Ottawa on from my aunt's place. There was a spot on the hill that where they used to get the bricks, the stuff for the bricks, to make bricks.
Okay. Yeah, that would be on the other end, I think, because when we do the,
I don't know. I would have thought it would be on their property, but I guess.
Well, it probably got used at one point, because when we give the tours, some of the information we found is that the foundation of Tucker House is made of limestone from the property. And so we went and found it as a team, and it would be like along Tucker House, but towards Rockland. And indeed, you can tell it's been dug to retrieve the limestone. And of course, it still belongs to Tucker House, but in front of it, towards Tucker Road, is a new home completely. So it's really from a long time ago, but I wondered how long it's been used. We have a lot of question marks, because that's part of the issue, I think, when a beautiful property like this goes from the family to different groups, you sort of lose sometimes track of what is what. Like one thing, for example, is I would like to know what furniture in Tucker House is original furniture, as opposed to things that have been, sold or bought over the years. So
we have a thing in the house.
Yeah, was that from Tucker House, or was that from your? It wasn't from your grandparents or from your aunt's house?
Oh, from my aunt's place.
Yeah. So we have some furniture from Margaret and Gladys's place.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that has several layers, and each layer you can lift the layer right off.
Yeah, I guess it's a buffet, and it has 3 shelves that are glassed in, and you can put dishes in them and stuff. I'll send you a picture.
You can take the shelf off and put it there, and take another shelf off.
That's right. Yeah.
And each of those, we're up in where's up the St. Jacobs.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my parents went up to St. Jacobs, like to the Amish area, I guess. And is that where you got?
Yeah. Each shelf on that was worth $400 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we have 2 of them, and each have 3 shelves. Yeah.
I was at the museum recently, actually when you were talking about coming, Sue, to look at those maps on the walls. And then he showed me, they look like shelves, but not ornate, just shelves. And he had put some decorations. But he told me that the shelves were from the actual general store owned by Willard Sr. So that house to the right of your Aunt Margaret's house was the general store in the bank. And so these shelves are actually there. And he said they were used for display. So that would have been your grandfather, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they're they were in my aunt's place. Like we picked them up from my aunt.
Yeah, and I think there's another set because at the museum, but these are not special. They're from the store, but they're not woodworked. Like it's
Yeah,
not.
so they're just regular shelves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these ones are kind of nice antiques. They're actually beautiful.
Like the thing that's a store now, all I remember is bins for grain.
Yeah, it's a little hard. It's hard to keep track. Like there's a piano at Tucker House, for example, and it's an old piano, and we just had it tuned, and it's an okay shape, like you can play. And so we would love to know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it being there 20 years ago when we went, or at least there was a piano. Whether it was exactly that one, I'm not sure. It'd be fun if we could find our pictures from 20 years ago, because you know, there might be some hints for you of at least what was there 20 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, when we had it tuned, the tuner did give us an approximate age, and I think he did say 1910.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Around there. But we do have so many things in the attic that we have. We're thinking if it's in the attic, it belonged to the house. And
right, so, sure. Yeah.
At some point, we're going to be able to, hopefully, to find out. But it's this piano is pretty special. There are some built-in as well on the second floor and in the parlor, I think, built-in display case, I guess you would call it. But the tables, now it sounds like the tables are original because they sound exactly like what you remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
No, I would have been, it would be neat to be able to picture what you saw as a youngster when you visited, because I'm thinking of the trees. Like in front of Tucker House, there's a beautiful pine tree, and that pine tree is still there. And it was on the very picture that Jackie showed, the black and white picture of Tucker House when it had the wraparound porch. And so in terms of vegetation, and it must have been, I wish we could see from your eyes back then. From what we understand as well, all of Tucker House was built from material that was on the property. So the foundation from the limestone, the bricks from the creek and the clay. Apparently, the only two things that were not from the property were the fireplaces, and the marble was ordered from Italy, and the windows, which were ordered from Montreal, and apparently
glass and nails.
There you go. They came by train. They came
everything else was, the lumber was made, the bricks were made.
Yep.
And the Tuckers were big in brick making, lumber, and merchandising.
Yep. Yep. We did find over time in drawers and boxes and that receipts and booklets, and somebody at one point had an insurance, selling insurance, I think. Does that ring a bell? That would have been a great uncle, I'm guessing.
Maybe the descendants of Stephen Luther.
Okay. I was thinking.
He's Stephen Luther. That would be Willard's brother, I guess.
Ah, okay.
Right.
And that's why I don't have a Stephen there. he stole the name.
He stole the name.
Yeah, so a couple of things that we found. I did find a number of things that seem to be some kind of insurance, like lots of little insurance papers. I don't know if they were, so maybe it's something that was, like, I don't know if they belong to the people. Because my dad, I guess when the Margaret Gladys house was closed, he and my mom went over there. They got some of the furniture, and then they got some memorabilia, like the general book or general ledger, the genealogy book.
Oh, that was from the store.
Okay, but was it at the
from the down at the grain? Yeah, they had the books down there.
Okay,
they had several books there, but I took the oldest one.
The
1836. Half the customers were barges going up and down the Ottawa River. The rest were people and I understand that the Clarence maybe had 200 people.
Yes, yes, yes. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have lots of old documents and papers and books and stuff. We're going to bring that up as well. And then that was the thing I wanted to tell you is we also found a little box of cards, Christmas cards, mostly Christmas cards, I'd say, that were wherever there's a date, the date is around 1880.
Oh.
And they're the most beautiful cards. Like I'm going to have to keep some for myself because they're just too gorgeous.
Yeah.
But they're so amazing, and the colors are really vibrant, and they're all hand painted, I think, or I don't know how they're done actually, but they're really, really beautiful. I think you're gonna get a real kick out of seeing them.
Wow, and they're in great shape still.
Yeah, like mint.
Fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah.
The little insurance documents they're little booklets, like tiny booklets, maybe 6 inches high and 2 or 3 inches wide, all handwritten.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they're little inside envelopes, and then you pull out the envelope, and there's a piece of paper. That's what we have. Okay.
No, not that, but just everything was done by hand. That's also from our point of view now. It's so nice to see somebody's handwriting. Yeah. One thing that's probably from your aunt's place is we found receipts for cheese orders. So somebody ordering, this many pounds of cheese, and there was a little handwritten receipt, and there's a record sheet as well. So she had a dairy farm. I'm assuming that's where they made the cheese as well, at the same farm, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, because there's not much known. Like say with the cows and the cheese, they were there. They were part.
They had cats in the barn and they had cats in the house.
Yes.
Oh, they had 2 Siamese cats, and one of them was cross-eyed, and the other cat would catch mice and to bring it to the other one. And the one they were. They say, give me a paw, and they do all sorts of stuff that a lot of dogs do.
Dogs/cats.
Yeah, give me a dog, give me a paw.
Did you go for March break only, or you went for, say, Christmas?
Possibly Christmas too.
But mostly your memories.
In the summer, I went up to Norway Bay.
Okay, so really, when you think of this area, it's March break for you.
Probably March break.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Do you have siblings who came with you, Mr. Tucker, or you came by yourself?
I had a sister.
Did she go with you?
Probably.
Yeah.
So that was the way to spend March break. I didn't even realize there was March break then, honestly.
Yeah, I know, me neither.
That it was a modern concept.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Cindy and Jackie, because for me, this is all new. Would you have questions for Mr. Tucker? Cindy has been with us for a number of years, and she's been at Tucker House, and she's been doing pretty well everything with the board.
Well, this has all been super fascinating. I honestly, unless I come up with something, I don't have a question at the moment, but no, this has been really great to listen, and it's amazing every time I go to an event, or like Marie was saying, I've been on the board for 5 years now, and it's amazing in that every event I go to, I learn some new piece of information that I didn't know before. So it's been really great to listen in on this interactive conversation.
Did you notice the White House across the street ever? I mean, it's hard not to, but when you come, you drive in, you don't pay attention, but it's next time you have to look. It's a beautiful house. They maintained it very well too. And
it's a big house, had lots of rooms.
It looks like it. And this year, last year as well, 2 years now, they've done the Christmas lights everywhere. And I think it's like a gift to the neighborhood, because that house has lights. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he has
they took out the big pans where they made the maple syrup.
I suspect, yeah, because I don't see anything, because it's now a business.
I don't know if they did something with the land behind there. I don't know if you can do anything with it.
Yeah, well, because it's a business now, they probably changed
you can't, there's no access to it. You can't really sell the stuff.
No.
And I also wonder how far it goes until you reach the golf course, that property too now, because the golf course goes right behind.
Yeah.
So I wonder what part of that was sold to them or whatnot, but it must have changed. Jackie, did you have a question?
Oh, I'm just remembering that our previous intern discovered cherry plums, which aren't actually native to the area. So it seems that they were there since Tucker House was built, because they brought it over as like a sign of wealth, and just plant them around the property. And we didn't know they were there until we started cleaning things up. And then we discovered these little plum trees everywhere.
You remember plum trees?
Not really.
But it's an interesting point.
Yeah, very interesting.
Because it was another intern last summer, and he spent all of his time outside. And he was like a maniac. He knew everything, and he was self-taught. It's just a nature lover, definitely. And as he was clearing, because quite a few of the areas are heavy and they needed a bit of clearing, he discovered these trees. And he said, this is so puzzling that they're here in a certain order. And they're nowhere else on the property. What is the story? And he went back, did some research, and he found out that in around 1900, this was the tree to have if you wanted to show your wealth. And it was a beautiful tree, and not everybody could afford it. So we have quite a few on the property. And like Jackie said, we're going to try to highlight them more because
you know the trees that line the entrance to off the road. Those things must have been there since they first Tucker, because they are huge.
Yeah, there are quite a few mature ones in the area. Actually, we're very lucky that way. It's a beautiful part of Clarence, Rockland, for sure.
My relatives from up in Lake St. John, they find it hard to believe that a pine tree can grow as high as they're used to, about the size of an apple tree.
It's like 2 weeks ago we're building a new garden as well this year, and one of our volunteers found out that they were clearing a lot in Rockland, and it was full of trees, but of course they're taking all the trees out to make it nice and flat. Then they're gonna build, and then they're gonna go buy trees. Anyhow, they said, if you want anything, go get them. And so 4 of us went, and we retrieved cedars and firs and pine trees. And we went back. I just went back a few days ago. It's all gone. It's all flat. So that's another reason why we're so privileged to have Tucker House, is that the forest has been maintained.
Yeah, you have 23 acres or something like that, I think.
30 now.
30
now. Yeah, and then the woods, now what we've decided to do too in the last few years is we found some experts in mushroom, and they've come and they've visited the forest in the fall, and we have many types of mushrooms. And so for a few years now, we do these mushroom ID sort of workshops. And last fall we did, and this lasted 3 hours, and we had 3 picnic tables worth of different mushrooms of all colors, blue mushrooms. I never would have imagined, but when you do the workshop with experts, of course, they know what to look for. And for them, oh, it's going to grow under a pine tree. It's going to be that color. It's ready. It's not ready. Very fascinating universe, but that's all because we have the forest. I was told recently, we belong now to a group called Boisé Est. And it's a group of nonprofit, and anybody with more than so many acres of woods can join. And then you share resources, all kinds of resources, be it save a type of tree that's in trouble or attacked by a certain type of insects, or also there are tax breaks to be had too, if you belong to that. But through that group, I found out there are only 2 forests in Rockland, the Tucker House Forest, and one that's outside of Rockland, the La Rose Forest. There was one in Rockland, they tore it down and they built the YMCA and a school. So yeah, so in Rockland per se, we are the ones. Tucker House has the only forest, so it's I mean it's an amazing property for sure, and you're not gonna see condos going up there anytime soon.
No,
No.
One of the memories I have from that trip when I was very young was going to the Wilson house with Lucy and what was the other one? Lucy.
oh,
Anyway, there were two Wilsons, Lucy and somebody else. They eventually lived to 105 and 108.
oh yeah, we have two cousins,
Yeah.
105, 108.
Yeah.
And I saw that picture of them in the paper saying they lived to 105, 108, and they died that year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm hitting 91. I'm hitting 90 now. I'm hoping to pass them.
Yeah. Dad's always said he's going to live to 109, so he's got a while to go.
When is the birthday now?
May 25th.
Oh, that's really soon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did say that 2 days after our Heritage Day.
So yeah, so I remember going to the Wilson's place, and what I remember was they had a beautiful, I think it was a white house as well, and they had a pond in the back, and they had frogs or toads or something in the back, which I love toads, so I was always very excited to go. And they had snake skins, and so they had snakes, and they would shed their skin and leave it, and she had some with her, and she also had some rocks that she had opened up by dripping water onto it, and it opened up and you can see the fossils inside, and I love that trip. That was so neat.
So this was across from what's now Highway 17, really on the Wilson farm property?
I think so. I think that's where, I don't know, I remember there was definitely a pond in the back.
And we used to visit them quite often.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, I think there is a pond on that property. That must have been that.
Yeah.
It's funny, your childhood memories, they're so clear, and there's usually a smell associated to it and a color. And when you see it back later, it's different.
Like we were related to the Wilsons, so
yes.
It's like a double connection.
Yes, it's
my grandfather's wife and his what was it? Anyway, there was another.
Yeah, two connections.
Two connections, yeah.
Yeah. Is it Lucy and Mary? Mary Wilson? Can't remember the other one. Yeah. There's definitely a Lucy, but.
Yeah, on the pictures and the documents that we see, a lot of Wilsons and of course the Tucker, but the family that lived where I am, the Blais family as well. I saw a picture where Ida Blais is in front of Tucker House with a bunch of little children. And Ida, I am told, lived in this house till she was 80 something, and she was blind apparently. But because the house had become one floor and she knew her way around, she was born here. She was able to stay here by herself quite a long time, and I could see why. It's a lovely environment for sure. Wow, this is truly down memory lane.